All right, I pressed the button.
I will press it now. I'm using the classic one, so it might take a couple seconds. I don't remember how reliable it is.
This video is private. What are you on, YouTube? That's clearly not the case. Oh well.
See if I can see.
I mean, there's people in the chat, so
yeah. Started streaming. Yep, no, I can see it. We're good. I'm just waiting for mine to start populate. Should take a second. So, do you want to do the intro for this one?
I can.
Me too. You're generally better, so.
Okay. Are we going to talk about product?
Yes, we should definitely talk about product. I can even.
That'd be perfect.
The email ready.
Because I don't know about you guys, but are you streaming yet? I love product,
yes.
And I'm really glad to have product as a sponsor for this podcast. Why don't you talk a little bit about products, Justin? Because I know you love product too.
I think we should wait till the actual podcast gets started.
You want me to do the intro now? Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of TapCaf Transmissions, our Star Wars podcast that is branching out a little bit, where normally we talk about Star Wars books, but this is the first of our new, I guess, weekly episodes where we are going to be trading off between doing the book discussions and just other Star Wars media discussions or topic discussions, because we feel like that'll probably work a bit better for people having a weekly show rather than every 2 weeks, sometimes every 3 weeks. But yeah, so we've got a few topics.
I mean, you said branching out, but it's like when you're a kid and your mom tells you, like, you've been playing Xbox all day, so you go and play Game Boy or something.
These are conversations we have anyways that we are now just recording and putting under the broad TapCaf Transmissions banner, which I should also mention that after tonight's podcast live production on Tapped Out After the Calf, we're going to be playing some Sea of Thieves, our gaming. We need a name for that.
There'd have to be some sort of like hangover reference or something, because like it's after the TapCaf, so it's like
but it well it's a coffee place
drunk?
Really. So
well, TapCaf and Star Wars usually mean
both
as a bar,
because there's calf, which is basically coffee, but combination coffee house and bar.
Yeah, most of the time they're in a TapCaf. Yeah, which sounds pretty good actually.
They could stay open all day. It's like when McDonald's open breakfast.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Where it's like just bars that sell a bunch of coffee. I guess a lot of pubs do that, but anyways.
Yeah. What we're talking about? Oh yeah, so after the Sea of Thieves, before we get into the episode, is there any other Star Wars news you want to talk about? It was Star Wars Day, May the 4th, a few days ago. So we got
I guess we should say first that this episode is going to be about the full final season of the Clone Wars. We're going to talk pretty broadly about all of it, all 3 arcs. There will be spoilers, obviously. So if anyone hasn't seen it that doesn't want to be spoiled, leave now, or we will tell you that Order 66 happened and Ahsoka is there, and then Maul has a 2-bladed lightsaber. You've already ruined it for yourself now if you didn't trust me when I said we were going to spoil stuff for you.
I mean, those are some
I didn't want to be
too spoilers.
I need to ease people in.
Yeah. Okay, so back on the topic of Star Wars news, I guess the main thing was the Jedi Fallen Order got an update. That was pretty cool.
I haven't played it yet, but I also thought that New Game Plus was something that already existed. So basically you're allowed to use your cosmetics that you've got in previous playthroughs in a new playthrough.
Yeah. It's kind of like the worst version of New Game Plus, because I just don't get the point. It's just cosmetics. Like, New Game Plus generally means you don't have to go earn all your powers again, right? Or like at least you keep your skill points, but they've kept it locked. I don't know. It's kind of
I'd say I'm fine with it, but again, this is something that I thought they already had in the game. So I guess I'm not super impressed with that. There was the bug that you did a video on that you can fly everywhere. So
yeah, they fly now.
I mean, that's got to be worth something.
Other than that, I guess we know for sure that we're getting
Yep.
more Jedi Fallen Order games as well. They announced it's basically the start of a new series, which I think most of us expected. I mean, I kind of expected that since we got the Jedi colon title. So it's like Star Wars Jedi, whatever. And I guess we've got a release date as of today for
It's
Lego
October
Star Wars
20th, was it?
20th. Yeah, that game looks great. I'm really looking.
Yeah, the Lego
forward to
Star
that
Wars
as
games
well.
have always been pretty good.
Yeah, and this one's going to be like the big daddy of Lego Star Wars.
Battlefront 2 support has ended. That's something that's happened since the last episode, I think.
Yeah, true.
The announcement for that kind of came out of nowhere.
I don't know.
At least as far as I was concerned, where I knew it was like kind of ramping down, but it was just like one weekend. Okay, we're done. Bye, everyone.
Yeah, and like based on the last time I was at I can't say too much. Based on the last time I was at like an EA event, they definitely indicated that they wanted to support it for a few more years. So it seems like there was definitely like a decision based on population or something, and they just didn't hit the parameters they needed to. So time to
especially because there was the announcement that Ben was stepping down like only a week or two before, so it seemed like the kind of thing where like maybe have that as like a joint thing. But yeah.
Other than that, I think the only thing was a big one. We're getting a new show and a new movie. And I mentioned I know we kind of have slightly different views on this. You're quite excited, right? Because it's Taika. And I guess this is one you're going to be.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Taika, so it's a combination I'm pretty happy with. But you're not, I take it?
No, I am happy, but for me, there's like so many Star Wars movies that have been announced that haven't gone anywhere yet. That this kind of just enters like we've got the I guess the Benioff and Weiss.
Yeah, that one has been officially canceled. Because Benioff and Weiss were just kicked off.
We got the Rian Johnson one. Yeah, we've got the Rian Johnson one that, by all indications, is still happening. There's other ones that have been announced, but like they just don't get anywhere, you know. So it's kind of like what's happening and what's not. It's just kind of a big.
Well, I think a lot of that
we've got all
it's kind of just grouped with the fact that they changed their strategy a few years ago, and like some stuff that was going to be a movie turned into a TV show around the same time. So we'll kind of see where other projects go, but like the only one that I'm considering actively in development right now is that Taika is definitely doing this one, and then probably Rian Johnson doing something at some point, but probably not a trilogy anymore.
Yeah. And what about TV shows? Because we also get a TV show by Christy Wilson Cairns. I've never actually heard of her. I think you mentioned she's done like rom-coms and stuff.
I think Christy Wilson Cairns is part of the Taika movie. She's co-writing it with him. And then it's Headland that's doing a new TV show that she's showrunning.
Right, okay. And you said she's the one who's done... so what kind of Star Wars show that will be?
Well, people have really sure. I kind of brought that up as like maybe they're doing something like this that's a bit more like more daily life, but...
It could just be like... Yeah, lighter tone.
But people do different stuff as well.
To be fair,
because she's done 2 rom-coms doesn't mean that she's only able to do rom-coms.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It could just be she was a good fit for the job or whatever. Again, it's so far off, we don't really know. And
especially since they seem to be hoping that a lot of the Star Wars content is going to carry Disney Plus for a while. So I'm not surprised that we have a few projects coming up like that. And I'm kind of hoping that they all do... pretty different stuff rather than getting 5 Mandalorians, because as much as I did enjoy The Mandalorian, some variety there would be really nice.
That was kind of my argument just for more Clone Wars. Like, they've got all of these arcs that are in various stages of completion. Some have been basically even animated to a partial extent, like the Bad Batch was before season 7. And this is sort of getting on topic. I think there are 2 or 3 arcs that are in that sort of stage. The Bounty Hunter one is one. We saw the fight between Boba. I actually don't remember who did he fight. Anyway, they've shown parts of it. Like, why not just get them out as independent arcs for Disney Plus? Like, they don't need to be a whole new season or anything like that. but just call it like the lost episodes or whatever and finish them.
I would be surprised with the response that there's been to season 7 if we did get something like that at some point. But I think with just finishing the show, they just did want to finish the show and just picked like the arcs they thought was more important.
Oh yeah, it was Boba and Cad Bane. Yeah. Again, we'll see. It's just like they need so much content for Disney Plus, and like old Disney movies are only gonna like that's always gonna get a certain segment of people to subscribe, people with kids or whatever.
But is that
going
to keep up like, active subscriber base?
Yeah, that's a good point. And like you kind of always need stuff coming out. You can only do so many of the big budget Star Wars shows. Like with Marvel, they've basically thrown everything at the wall. Like they've got the Marvel What If series. I don't know. To me, it just makes sense to get more out if you can. Because I know they were planning like I think 2 more seasons in total, including the final season. So, but yeah, that's all I have on that point. Do you want to move on before we get to the Clone Wars review and discussion with the sponsor we have for this week? Our first ever
so
sponsor.
we a big staple in podcasting is that you do a lot of like product placement or ad reads, and we got an email we just couldn't turn down for product, and I personally love product. How do you feel about product?
Actually looking for the email, but I can't.
You're ruining the joke, Justin.
Did you? No, I mean I'm just looking for the email so I can do the ad read. But I'm a big fan of product. Product offered to pay us a lot of money to sell you guys product, which for us was very, very hard to turn down, especially given how much we both care about product.
But
money. I think you sent me the email today, didn't you?
I think I copied it.
Yeah, hold on. So basically, if you work as a YouTuber or I guess now as a podcaster for any amount of time, you will get emails from people trying to get you to sell their stuff. And especially when you're starting out, you get lots of just absolute trash. I'm not talking about like Raid Shadow Legends, who I have done paid promotions for in the past. I'm talking about like this will literally be like sell our gambling service or sell our resume writing service. But I've never before today got a email from someone who doesn't even tell you what the company is, what the product is. I'll just read it to you guys straight up. Good day. I'm a representative of an advertising company. Our company needs to advertise the product on the YouTube platform, and your channel is suitable for this. Our prices are as follows. $1,600 for a full 3-minute review of our product, whatever that is. $120 for ad integration at the beginning of your video, pre-roll. If the prices do not suit you, please let us know. We will try to negotiate. If, as you say, I didn't say anything, you want to make ads based on views, this option is also considered. I would like to know its details. I look forward to your prompt response.
So I've been following an advertising company for a long time, and their release of product really got me excited. And if you guys are excited for product as well, then help us to keep this discussion going for the full 3 minutes so we get our full $1,600. Because we've done what they asked now, right? We've talked about product for 3 minutes. The check should be in the mail.
That's true. That's true, actually. I just like how it must be that they meant to fill something in and they didn't. But I do like that. It's like that scene from Revenge of the Sith where Obi-Wan and Anakin are captured by Grievous, and Grievous is like, yes, the negotiator. Like that's what you'd see if you ever met this person. But yeah, so thanks guys for helping us collect those fat checks. Should we move on to less enjoyable content and a discussion and review?
We should. I guess we should. Do you want to break it into discussions of the Bad Batch first, then the Trace and Rafa arc, then Siege of Mandalore? Just do it that way. What were your thoughts overall in the season first, though, actually?
Good. I thought it was good. A lot of people are ripping on the second arc, the Ahsoka arc, and I do understand where they're coming from because it is kind of out of left field. It's not very big in scale considering it's the final season, and you can really say the same thing about the Bad Batch. So from that perspective, I do agree that it somewhat lacks a bit of consistency and like a bit, especially when it comes to like overall story. But that's kind of always been the case with the Clone Wars. To me, it's always been 4-episode arcs, usually sometimes 2 or 3-episode arcs, separated. And then there is somewhat of an overall story going on, but a lot of it is just kind of individual arcs. So I didn't really have a problem with that. I quite enjoyed it overall. It gave me basically all that I was hoping for. I do kind of wish we would have got to see more of like Order 66 and the Fall of the Republic from like across the galaxy instead of just being a Rex and Ahsoka story. Oh yeah, Fall of the Republic is Empire War mod. But I also get why they chose to go in that direction. But yeah, that's basically, I enjoyed it. I'm not going to give like a rating or anything. It was definitely one of my favorite seasons. I think they did good by us, and I think episode 12 was probably one of my favorite Clone Wars episodes of all time.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the season overall. I do think like there was one episode in the Trace and Rafa arc that we'll get to that I think being without that would have been better. I think would have made people see the arc a bit better. There are a few reasons that I did really like even that. But yeah, I think
Is that the one where they start off captured, then get captured again?
Yeah. Where I guess I'll just say quickly now, like at first I was like, okay, so the point of that was just that was the character arc and get Ahsoka and Rafa on the same page, but then the first minute of the next episode they're like bickering again. It's like, okay, so no, this would have been as a 3 arcs set, that would have been great because there's a lot we see about basically what the arc is for is to kind of give a more standard view of the Jedi, like how people see the Jedi.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, hey, here's some random people that Ahsoka's off doing something with. It's like, we're about to murder the Jedi. This is kind of how the galaxy is going to see them and see that. Because you get the thing about how Luminara, I think it's Luminara, is like they had an interaction with her where the shuttle comes down, kills their parents, and Luminara says, oh, good stuff about the Force, and then leaves. Where, sure, to the Jedi, it's this big cosmic thing, but to them, it's like, no, you kind of just came in, messed some shit up, and then left because you're unaccountable. You're supposed to be these superheroes because they build themselves up as the protectors, and then they're unable to do anything for people who need them directly. And the Jedi kind of lost sight of who they were supposed to be in the war, especially, but also the last few decades. And it's something that I want to do a video about this specifically, but it's something that does come up in the New Jedi Order as well, where there's a kind of schism in the Jedi Order between Luke Skywalker's side, which is actually more on the Luminara side, where the Jedi need to be off doing what the Jedi need to do to grow in the Force. And then Jason Solo takes that even further, where he kind of wants to go into a full hermitage and just learn about the Force and the galaxy as a distraction. Whereas Kip and his people are like, no, we need to go in, we need to solve problems for people. But the downside with what they're doing is that they also need to tell people what to do. And I think that arc, because I was reading those books at the same time as that arc was going on, and to me it was like kind of a nice parallel, getting to see what the regular people actually look at that like. Because so often in Star Wars we get kind of the top-down view, and this was a rare and I thought mostly enjoyable, except for that one episode, look at how that was seen by others.
There's actually kind of a iJedi comparison too with like the Jensare. Basically, the Jedi go in there. There's that big battle where Corran's grandfather dies, and they destroy like that dome and accidentally kill all of the Jensare that are there. And like no one really thinks about it. It's like all about this battle, but there's been like these kind of devastating consequences. It's kind of an interesting connection to last episode for anyone following along. I will say though, I agree that they could have. I think it would have been much better if, you know, they would have had the full Bad Batch arc, and then even if they split the 4 episodes between the first and the final arc into 2 mini arcs. So I'm sure they could have got the whole Ahsoka arc into 2 episodes, and then maybe fit in another 2-episode slice of life arc in there. I would have
Like,
enjoyed that a bit.
I would have been perfectly fine with it being
Yeah.
1 or 2 episodes as well. I think 4 was probably more than we needed, but I also think there's one that lifts straight out. With like, if I rewatch it, I'm probably just skipping that episode entirely. There's literally no reason to watch that episode.
So you mentioned rewatching. I'm kind of wondering, because we talked about this on a different episode. What I guess you finished your Clone Wars rewatch before this, I'm assuming. So like, what's your experience with Clone Wars generally? Did you watch it as it was releasing?
I started watching it as it was releasing, but I think I only got through the first 2 seasons or so before I was like, okay, the entire Clone Wars takes place on Naboo, so I'm kind of out on this. And actually, and that's usually when it's kind of seen to have picked up more. So I probably got out at the worst time when that was my complaint. But I didn't really watch past season 2 as it was airing. I was more getting back into it later.
Yeah, kind of the same for me. Like, I completely wrote the show off when I was a kid. Well, not a kid. I guess it came out
2008. We would have been in our 16 to 20
in high school
when it was all coming out.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it was like I just assumed because of the animation that it was that it was a kids show. And I think if I didn't have a YouTube channel, I don't think I ever would have watched all the way through. Like, I kind of went back later and caught the occasional episode, but it never really hooked me until I was like, okay, I just have to watch this now because I can't. There's like a whole thing I can't talk about. I was like, okay, this is pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have gone back if it wasn't for specifically starting the lore channel, but also a bit working on Fall of the Republic. Because like when it originally came out, I was still working on mod stuff, but we were only doing I think by that point we were only doing post-Endor stuff. So then I was like, okay, I don't even really need to watch this for mod research. But I did enjoy it a lot more going back through and rewatching it.
Yeah. Do you have like a favorite episode or a favorite arc? Or a least favorite episode?
Like the early stuff with Naboo, just I never could get into it. I ended up skipping a few of those episodes, rewatching it. I guess the original Domino Squad stuff was good, but I'm trying to think of like any specific arc that would be my favorite. A lot of the later seasons I just enjoyed in general. So I don't know that I had anything that like really stands out as a favorite until maybe Siege of Mandalore takes that. But
yeah, I personally hated the Mon Cal arc. I mentioned this before, but I think it's like the most bland thing ever. I think it's more than 4 episodes too. I can't remember though. But it's like they just didn't animate the water very well, and it's just there's no like life in the water. It's just very boring, and they're just swimming around for a long time. So I don't like that one.
Umbara arc was I really liked Umbara.
Kind of a strange.
You're about to say you didn't. Okay.
No, I do like Umbara as well. That's one of my favorites. I also really like any episode that takes place on Coruscant and that deals with like the Senate and stuff. I really enjoyed that. There's like the Senate murders arc, which is weird because it's so out of place. It takes place in season 2, I think, before you kind of know what's going on with a lot of these characters, just because like I think Anaconda Farr, you kind of learn about him. He's the Rodian who's murdered. I think you learn about him like
that was the biggest problem with doing my rewatch, is that it's so out of chronological order. So like Anaconda Farr dies, and then there's like 5 more episodes of Anaconda Farr later. It's like, And I was way too lazy to go and actually try to watch it chronologically. Is that?
Oh yeah,
nope. Just pressing next.
Which is one thing about being on Disney Plus. They could literally, I mean, I know I'm exaggerating it, but they could set up a like a timeline watch or like a chronological watch in like 15 minutes and just have it as an option when
that should really be the default
the series. Yeah, exactly. It's just rearranging episodes. see
Yeah,
where
there's
they
no
couldn't do it.
reason to have it as it is now other than production order, which, like, for The Simpsons, I'd understand, but The Simpsons doesn't have an overall
Yes.
story they're trying to tell. So, oh well.
Mm-hmm. It's basically that arc really suffers, and so does the Domino Squad stuff, because that one's also really badly out of order. But I mean, yeah, you see, you get it. Like, it's not a huge deal. But I like any episode that takes place on Coruscant because it's like my favorite place in Star Wars, and I really liked the first Ahsoka episode for that reason, because it kind of reminded me of like those. They're not really slice of life.
We say that
episodes,
phrase
but more
way
than
too much. Also, so I'm trying to specifically avoid saying that phrase ever again. It's going to become a meme, and only Tall Man should be a meme.
I forget what else I was going to say, but yeah, I like those ones. I'm trying to think of other really standout episodes for me. I was never as much of a fan of like the Mandalorian stuff and the Darth Maul stuff. Like the Mandos just don't do it for me. Like I like the Mandalorian, but the fact that he is a Mandalorian didn't really get me super excited. I don't like the whole pacified Mandalorian at the beginning of the Clone Wars, or Mandalore at the beginning of the Clone Wars. I get the idea of it, like there being a power imbalance and stuff, and that's cool. But yeah, other than that,
I don't mind that as much. It's just as far as who it's supposed to appeal to, I'm less sure. Because the Mandalorians kind of just get inserted everywhere in a way that I don't really like, because it appeals to that certain part of the fan base, and Karen Traviss especially. But a lot of those people are the ones who were most upset by the fact that they were portrayed the way they were.
Yeah.
And it's like, to me, I don't think it like ruins continuity the way a lot of people do, that there are like two opposing factions with that. Like,
no, I agree.
One is just, they just had a really destructive civil war. The Death Watch is still there. It's just they're trying not to blow themselves up right now. So I didn't see it as a huge issue, but at the same time, it's like, okay, why do we need to spend so much time focusing on them? But
yeah, I mean, I also kind of feel like I don't care as much about like when it comes to the Clone Wars. I personally don't care as much about the overall story, because I know, like, the Republic is going to fall. The clones are going to turn evil. Well, I guess in hindsight, when you watch it again, what's going to happen with Mandalore. So, like, I kind of like the more self-contained arc sometimes. Like, I like the droids arc, which is a really random one. Trying to think of like some others that are like that. Like, I quite like the father and son daughter arc. Even though that one's kind of
I don't like that one as much, just because it's Abeloth is something else.
Yeah, but I mean,
it wasn't, but it all does become interconnected, and on their own, I didn't love them. Then I didn't love Abeloth on her own, and then it all combines to something that I don't love overall. But I do like, if it had been explained in another source book, maybe a bit more. Because the thing I don't like about it is just how kind of weird it makes the whole Celestial situation. But that's more of a me thing than something that I'd really expect other people to be upset about.
That's kind of watching. It's almost like a retcon as well. Like the ones in the Celestials being made the same. Like, I don't think, because the Celestials existed as characters in Legends before the ones were created, but I don't think. Yeah, it's a weird situation. But I definitely.
One of the things that's always been weirdest to me with like all of it, though, is that anything that's like contradictory or something that people don't like, I've seen a lot of like, oh, Disney ruined this. Most of the show came out 6 years before Disney took over, so that's always been something that kind of got me.
Yeah, and it kind of indicates George Lucas's opinion of Legends as well, because he just straight up like changes everything. The big one for me is the clones, how they're made from, like, in Legends, for most of Legends anyway, the clones just followed Order 66 because they just did. They just, like, it was an order. And we get in like the Dark Lord Rise of Darth Vader, one of the clone commando squads just doesn't, because they're like, actually, the Jedi are pretty useful. I don't think this is in the best interest of the Republic. But and then it gets changed to it being an inhibitor chip, which basically allows them to allows whoever's giving the order to override any sort of conscious defense, which is an interesting choice. Definitely makes the clones a lot more living and
Yeah,
human,
like the Clone Wars is like the most screen time we get for George Lucas's vision of Star Wars out of anything. So I think it's kind of a good counterpoint of like, oh, if they hadn't rebooted the thing and if George Lucas had kept it, it would have been Legends all over the place. And
Yeah. Plus, I mean, what are the chances of the sequel trilogy picking up 30 ABY right after what the Swarm
right
War?
After the Yuuzhan Vong War? It would have been before the Swarm War. Yeah.
Before the Swarm War, okay. So the sequel trilogy would have had lots of bugs in it. But yeah, that's getting a bit off track. I'm just trying to think of any other episodes I want to talk about before we get to season 7, because I doubt we'll ever do another Clone Wars podcast. So, do you think we'll think? I guess we could do like a whole episode on one season.
I mean, we're doing a whole episode on like Han Solo at Star's End. I'm sure there's just as much of an audience for like an episode about the Umbara arc or something if we really wanted to do it.
Yeah, true. We forgot to mention that too. That next week will be Han Solo at Star's End, which is definitely one of the oldest Star Wars Legends books. I think besides for Splendor of the Mind's Eye, I think it is the oldest, right?
It's certainly up there.
Besides the novelizations.
Yeah, I can't think of really anything. Jedi Prince is close, but
Jedi Prince isn't that old, is it? I thought Jedi Prince was 90s.
I thought it was like early 80s. Maybe it just feels early 80s to me. I've never actually looked at the front.
It's early 80s in writing at the very least. Yeah, 92.
I just...
Yeah.
I used to give it more of a pass because... Oh, no.
No, it's funny. I just Googled Jedi Prince Star Wars on Google, and the one, you know how it has like a similar questions thing. The fifth similar question is Triclops Rey's father?
Technically,
I'm assuming that yes. Anyway, should we move on to a discussion of the actual season?
Yeah, I think we should get into the Bad Batch, maybe.
Yeah, so the Bad Batch is... I've heard, like, after the fact, a lot of complaints about this one, because the Bad Batch is too of a just boring commando squad. Like, it's just like any action movie ever has those characters, you know? You've got the heavy, you've got the smart guy, the sniper, whatever. But I don't know. I quite enjoyed this. It was just a fun arc that I feel like could have fallen into any of the seasons. I will say in the first episode you get that conversation between Anakin and Padme, which kind of connects it to the greater universe. And I just wish throughout this whole season we would have gotten more of that.
I honestly don't like the Bad Batch arc that much. To me, it like I don't typically like that kind of action movie, so I'm not saying it's a bad arc. It's just not my taste. And they were kind of like an over the top A-Team to me. And like I've seen the A-Team, didn't love the A-Team, and there were a lot of those tropes that they just kind of threw into to that, or not just threw in, but like I think it was a well done thing for what it was, but what it wasn't what I enjoy. But that conversation between Anakin and Padme, and then especially the line afterwards when Anakin's like trying to hide the fact that the conversation was happening, Obi-Wan's just like basically tell Padme I say hello. And I think that's one of the best parts of the season, actually, just because of the context it adds for watching episode 3, where it's like, if Anakin had just spoken to Obi-Wan directly, Obi-Wan probably wouldn't have had a problem. Like, he would have been, oh, this is not allowed, whatever, but here's... I don't think it would have been as big a deal as Anakin probably was internally making it out to be.
Yeah, and that's not really like a new thing either. Like, it's pretty clear based on based on episode 3,
Yeah.
especially like when you go into the supplementary material, like the novelization.
Yeah, the
I think, straight up
novelization
says
goes
at one
into it a lot
point.
more, but just on screen
But even
media.
in the movie,
well, you kind of get it afterwards.
yeah, he's like Anakin's the
Yeah,
father.
but that's kind of the way it's done in
Yeah.
the movies. It's still
he said
it could be taken as Obi-Wan putting it together after the fact.
yeah,
Yeah,
she
rather
said it's
than what we get here, which is just an explicit acknowledgement between Anakin and Obi-Wan, like, which is what was really, and Rex,
And
of
Rex.
course, Rex, and Ahsoka's maybe in the background. Ponkrell is walking by for some reason, but it's that direct. The fact that it's directly between Anakin and Obi-Wan is really what was missing before, that I think this did, that makes it more interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like everyone knew
no,
that
I agree.
like everyone kind of knew like Obi-Wan knows what's up, but the fact that Obi-Wan is directly here telling Anakin, "Hey, I know what's up," is different.
Yeah, and like I said, I really wish we'd gotten more of that in this season. That's my biggest complaint, I think. I was fine with the arc structure. I was fine with the arcs they chose, but just more kind of overall tie-in, especially where this was the last season and there were fewer episodes. Like, I feel like the episodes could have been a bit longer in some places. I know they were going off of, for the first 2 arcs, especially like existing ideas, but I feel like they could have, included more of that kind of, because I don't think, I'm not 100% sure on the history, but I doubt that this was planned to be one of the final arcs in the Clone Wars. I know there was supposed to be a second Bad Batch arc, in fact. So they should have kind of worked with what they had, but also done more to kind of make it coherent and whatnot. What did you think? I don't know if you heard about this, but there's some some controversy because they removed a scene from episode 1. Did you hear about this? Or episode 2?
Was it the thing with like the logos and stuff, or the? Yeah,
It was like a pinup of Padme.
Yeah, I saw that and it was like, are people really upset about this? Like, come on.
Of course. I think, I don't know why they removed it, but I don't really have a problem with it. It might have been because,
for time, for ratings, like whatever the reason was, it's not a big deal.
And this did kind of show me why, like, companies don't frequently share stuff like this, because especially for the Bad Batch arc, every change was like on Reddit was really heavily like scrutinized. Like even small changes, like the way they shot the beginning sequences of the episode was with a fade between scenes instead of a cut. So like when the announcer was doing like the Clone Wars rage on or whatever, it like fade between scenes. It was like not a wipe, and people were really upset.
Whenever
about that.
anything like this is being made, there's multiple ways that are discussed, roughed out. Like any stage of production has a bunch of ideas that just don't go through, and there's any number of reasons why they wouldn't go through. Like movies go through reshoots and stuff a lot. It's just, but it only becomes a story when the company is generally more open about it. But if they do that and then people see something is like, I would have preferred it this way, or even more commonly, they kind of invent in their mind what that would also mean in other places. And it's just, it kind of gets, they try to apply reasoning for why it was done this way versus that way. That kind of fits into their other views on things. And usually it's just kind of meaningless. Like the choice is just, they just went with A instead of B, and that was what it was. But
yes, and then next episode had another huge controversy, or maybe it was even this episode, where they talk about Anaxes. Or it was this episode, because Anaxes, in Legends at least, was a very well-known core world. But some people took a conversation, because this is as the Outer Rim sieges were going on, and they call Anaxes. Basically, a lot of people meant because they were fighting on Anaxes, and it was during the Outer Rim sieges that this made Anaxes a Clone Wars, an Outer Rim planet. And Matt Martin said, "Well, I guess that's what this means," basically on Twitter. When really, it just seems obvious that the Outer Rim sieges were happening, and then maybe like the CIS counterattacked at Anaxes, which is a major Republic shipyard. And then that's why Anakin...
Which would also kind of make sense if they're preparing an assault on Coruscant. But yeah, and even if it was the show meaning to say that Anaxes was an Outer Rim planet, which I agree, I don't think that's what they were actually going for. And people can say things on Twitter that are their interpretation that maybe they just didn't have the information. Like Matt Martin doesn't know everything about Star Wars offhand access for his Twitter posts. But if anyone says anything wrong, and now he's private, so sometimes it's just people speaking off the cuff. They either have the right, like he was probably not directly involved in that decision in the first place, so his interpretation is maybe slightly more informed than other people, but it's not like the last word on Star Wars. And even if it was intended that way, it actually surprisingly, and I was shocked when this came up as well, I found out that there are other places in Star Wars where planets have been mentioned being in inconsistent places before. And I spent a few days in the hospital afterwards. My doctor was monitoring my blood pressure. By the end of it, what they did was they put up on the screen just a screenshot from the Star Wars Rebellion game with the planets labeled. And when I was able to maintain a steady heart rate through that, I was allowed to go home.
I've never seen that map, but
it divides everything into sectors for like game convenience rather than any sort of, and they don't even make sense from that perspective. But it's just kind of it's a thing that happens.
Anyway, what was I gonna say? One thing I was a little disappointed because we were teased is that we didn't get to see any real space battles. We got a hint of General Grievous inside what was, I guess, the Invisible Hand. We've got a little bit from at the Battle of Anaxes, but not a whole lot, and kind of felt like a bit of a lost, opportunity for me, especially where like the visuals and stuff.
Yeah, were so I would have impressive. Much preferred some sort of space battle centric arc over the Bad Batch, especially. But that was a little bit disappointing. We did get to see a crashing Venator, so that's close to a space battle.
And that scene was really phenomenal. The one where it's crashing after Maul freaking rips it out of hyperspace.
It's all Ahsoka's fault.
Yep. We'll get to that in a minute, or in a few minutes. I'm sure there's a lot we have to say about that. Anything else about the Bad Batch arc, really? Like, I don't know. Like you kind of said, I wasn't super into the, like, just a pure action arc doesn't interest me a whole lot. I did like the like Echo coming back. He was always a cool clone. And we also see a bit of like Rex kind of dealing, like at the beginning of episode 1, there's a bit of Rex trying to like come to terms with all the brothers he lost and stuff. But that didn't really play as much into the season as I was hoping it would. Trying to think if there's anything else I really want to mention. I guess it is nice that we did have one arc which featured, Obi-Wan and Anakin again, because they're not in this season a whole lot.
Yeah, that was nice, but we do get a little bit more of them with background Siege of Mandalore stuff. I do kind of enjoy the fact that like we know what they're up to off screen for a good amount of it. It's like they're popping in and saying stuff that's going on when they're in episode 3 for usually with the Siege of Mandalore stuff. But it's like I'm perfectly fine with them being in that arc as much as they were. But yeah, for the other two, it would have been nice to have more indication of what's actually going on with them.
It did feel like to me that there was, like, especially, like, I felt like there were similar episodes to, was it episode 3 of the Ahsoka arc you didn't like?
I think it was.
Is that the third one?
Together Again or something?
Because there are versions of that in this arc as well. I think the one where they teach they have another, like, very similar to the Mandalorian, where they teach the villagers how to fight and whatnot. And they go to the Separatist base. That one I thought was a bit meh. Like, it's basically just more action. And again, I'm hesitant to criticize that too much because the arc was made before they knew that it would be in the last season. So it's like, there were like they could have those sort of.
They had no reason to help the Republic either. It was in their best interest to tell the Republic to F off, and
because they're just
they're
bringing war.
Anything bad that happened to them was because the Republic went there and just dragged them into it, and then dragged all the CIS forces back to them, and and they were arming them with like the spears and stuff. Like, no, these are a bunch of battle droids coming with blasters and the giant Magna Octoptara droid. Like, don't fight them. Your responsibility in protecting these people would be to get them out of the way.
Yeah.
The
Octoptara droids are cool
but as cool as they are, I wouldn't want to fight them personally.
No, exactly. They're frightening. Like,
well, there was that scene that was cut where they were talking about whether they'd help the Republic, and they're like, we weren't going to help you, but
like,
they're pretty cool, so we want to see them up close. We'll stay.
I want to see them up close. Yeah, very up
especially
close.
With Anakin just standing up on the ridge for like half an hour. Like, a lot of people dying down there. I'll do something at some point.
And then, so the last episode, we get to see Anakin kill Trench again. Like, Trench was kind of wasted because he's supposed to be this hotshot admiral, very intelligent, but he doesn't really do much in this arc besides get killed again.
If we had an arc leading up to that instead of the that would be a great space battle arc instead of Bad Batch. But oh well,
it's fine. It sucks, but what can you do? Like, we got season 7, so yeah, way she goes. Let's move on to the second arc of the season, which we'll just call the Ahsoka arc, I guess. It's got 4 episodes: Gone with a Trace, Deal No Deal,
the bad one.
Dangerous Debt, and Together Again. Do you want to give a basic overview of what happens in this arc?
Ahsoka leaving the temple, her bike breaks, she ends up meeting the Martez sisters, Trace and Rafa. Trace is nice, kind of dumb. Rafa is gaslighting and horrible, but they've been surviving alone.
Irredeemable.
Yeah. The fact that Ahsoka just kind of leaves them with... Like, Rafa should not be in charge of anything. They have some smuggling hijinks. I think...
They go to Lush Castle.
Well, that actually existed pretty early on. That was another thing that I think Matt Martin tweeted about, where those plans had existed from the original Roughing Out, and then it was actually that got referenced for Solo.
Yeah, there's mention of a princess, I think, in one of the Solo connected material. And Kessel's different in canon, because in Legends it was basically a small rock.
It actually went back and forth in Legends as well. Yeah, there are a few places, like Empire War had it as the asteroid. I think Essential Atlas had it as the asteroid as well, but there are also some places in Legends where it was described as an actual planet. Like, canon seems to have firmly landed on just planet, but Legends, it was Schrodinger's asteroid.
I think the same thing is true with its moon too, which gets destroyed by the Death Star prototype, and then comes back. I think it's mentioned in other places, despite it should have been destroyed.
So that, but I think we kind of talked about the only thing that I found especially useful about the arc. Like, there were some character moments that I kind of enjoyed. I didn't like Rafa at all because she's just horrible. Trace was kind of fun, but you shouldn't go into smuggling. Just as a general rule, don't do that. And,
no, I agree. I like in the first episode how you see that giant pit. I don't know if it has an actual name. I just call it the pit. It's just like Coruscant's just such an interesting place because it's like the ocean. Like the deeper you go, the weirder creatures there are, and it's just like this is such a cool area to explore. So I'm always down for, like, I don't know. It's basically like a gajillion Mos Eisley cantinas
Yeah, do those pits? I think you can see stuff like that in the movies, so it's nice to go into them. But this is down where you'd be buying death sticks. They're a bit higher than you'd be buying death sticks, but
yeah. And the funny thing with the Clone Wars is once you see a ship once, like once a ship is prominently modeled or whatever, it just appears like everywhere over and over again. Same with Star Wars Rebels too. So I definitely saw a lot of assets. I was like, I forget the name of that Jedi ship. The one that
with the lightsaber
they are on to get their like when they go to Ilum. But like that one appears like a bajillion times. There's like it's like mostly Gazantes down there for some reason.
Assets are expensive.
But yeah.
That's why every fleet in the show is just a Venator, or 3 Venators, or 3 Munificents, maybe an Acclamator sometimes. You don't get much variety. They didn't really introduce that many new ship types, but you did get like the DH Omni, the Malevolence, but it would have been nice to have, over the course of it all, a few other things introduced.
I will say, Rafa's ship, or Trace's ship, is called the
Silver Angel,
the Silver Angel, and it's a Nebula class freighter. And someone tagged me on Twitter thinking that the Nebula Star Destroyer was canon again.
Trace did own a Nebula Star Destroyer. They could carry a lot of spice in that.
Yeah, she just stuffs the cockpits of the E-wings and stuff full of spice. But yeah, so I wish they would have stayed on Coruscant too, because I don't know if they needed to leave. And the first episode was my favorite, just because you do get to. I was less into the whole Jedi are not as epic as they seem, because I feel like that's kind of been played out, not played out, but I feel like that's kind of been done. It doesn't hurt to do it again, but yeah, I just would have liked to see more of Coruscant, especially where it is like the last time Coruscant's like that, I guess.
Yeah, I would have preferred without the smuggling. I think if you get rid of the smuggling element, you just have Ahsoka spend a couple days with them on Coruscant, maybe have a local gang thing, so you can have like 2 episodes in the arc. You get the same sort of idea, and you don't have to deal with dangerous debt and the fact that they start in prison, get out of prison, head back to prison. There is the thing where like the guy gets cut in half by an elevator. That was fun, but yeah.
Yeah, and someone loses their arm later. To
elevators are not safe. Just don't go in them. Always take the stairs, everyone. This is an anti-elevator podcast.
Pro burning calories.
Especially with like COVID right now, you don't really have as much time to get out and walk around. If you live in an apartment building, take the stairs. Just don't touch the railings.
Yeah. Elevators are basically COVID holes as well.
Yeah. Like everyone's touching the same button. You're really not supposed to get on an elevator with anyone, so I always get annoyed when like I'm taking the elevator back up or down, and then if it stops on another floor, people are supposed to just wait for the next one. But half the time they'll get on. It's like, don't.
Yeah. Trying to think of what else is worth. We talked about Kessel. They visit the Pikes, but there was a cool Solo reference. Did you catch that?
That they were on Kessel, which.
Well, when Darth Maul calls his other.
When they're on the call with like the Pikes and stuff, and then Woody Harrelson standing there.
Not Woody Harrelson.
That would have been better though.
Paul Bettany.
Yeah, I did catch it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember who's it that's calling when that happens.
Wasn't it Maul talking to them? I forget already.
Maybe that's in the next.
Yeah, that was during the Siege of Mandalore.
Running together. Yeah, right. That's like at the beginning, at the end of episode 1.
It's right before Ahsoka confronts him, I think, when they're running through the pipes and stuff.
Right. Yeah, my mistake. I don't know. It is cool seeing the underworld, I guess, but yeah, being captured and then captured again is always like
literally nothing changes in that episode. Yeah, I guess that's where you see Bo-Katan for the first time for like 3 seconds, but I mean, I don't think any of that was necessary either. But well,
yeah, it is kind of random how she like comes out of nowhere, but
just happens to run into Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm. I will say it has been cool, like with this season coming out after the Clone Wars and Rebels, how many connections were there? After Clone Wars coming out after Rebels and just other canon material, like the stuff that they managed to mix in there. Like at the end, we have the Condor? It's like the bird that is there when Ahsoka and Vader fight in Rebels, and it's like represents the sister. Like that was a cool reference.
So, do you consider personally season 7 to be part of the Legends story as well?
I don't consider Clone Wars to be Legends, the Clone Wars TV show. Like I know it technically is, but it contradicts so much of Legends that, like, if I'm talking about a Legends topic, I will, mention something in the Clone Wars, obviously, because technically it is within the continuity. But if I was to do a big headcanon thing, I don't think it fits in very nicely.
See, I think as far as the broader story goes, I don't think there's really that much that contradicts. Like, there's some stuff that then gets addressed by, like, Essential Guide to Warfare and everything. I don't think there's more that contradicts other parts of Legends here than in other places.
I'd say the Mandalore stuff probably does, but I don't know enough about how Mandalore was treated before to really say for sure, but maybe not. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of in that weird spot, but
like it conflicts with some parts of the multimedia project, but then you have to consider that the multimedia project also conflicts with some parts of both the movies and earlier Legends. Mm-hmm. And earlier parts of Legends conflict with itself in other places too. So it seems like to cut it off, there's a bit of a moving goalpost there that applies almost as much to any other part of Legends. Like the only thing that really is super hard to integrate is the Marvel comics. But
yeah. Well, we might have a different opinion once we read Star's End next week. Like I know season 7 technically isn't Legends, but I don't consider it any less than the rest of the series, in my opinion. What about you?
Yeah, I've considered the whole show part of Legends because it was released long before there was any idea of canon being split. And there were some intentional retcons, but then also you get things like Essential Guide to Warfare and a bunch of other source books that came out after the Clone Wars started coming out, which are some of the more definitive source books of Legends that heavily incorporate the Clone Wars content.
Yeah, you do have a good point. I can't really think of any.
Like, if you don't consider the Clone Wars TV show content canon, then or the TV show episodes, you still have to consider a lot of the content in it to be part of Legends, because it, like, for the next 6 years after the show started, a lot of it got very heavily worked into other Legends content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Trying to think if there's anything else about this.
I think we kind of talked about a lot of it at the start as well, so.
Yeah. Overall, not bad. To me, like, there's so many, like, Clone Wars arcs that are like this that
I would have preferred a bit shorter.
The third arc
was definitely fillery, which felt a little bit weird being like the second last arc of the Clone Wars, but at the same time, it's not this thing where we're wondering where the story's going either. So, like, we kind of know what happens.
Yep. The third arc was much different, though. The first thing you'll notice right away is the noticeable increase in animation.
The first thing I noticed was that the title screen was so different, to the point that I thought I had accidentally opened up like the original movie or something like that, because it's basically designed to be another movie on that kind of scale, presented very differently.
Yeah, they put it as like 4 parts, and I wonder if they will be doing an eventual release like that. I've seen a lot of, like, fans have been doing, like, cuts with that in Revenge of the Sith, which is cool. Just basic cuts, putting it all together, which is, also pretty cool. But I wouldn't be surprised if eventually it got it's not getting a theatrical release or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if eventually they made it its own thing on Disney Plus or whatever.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But I'd still rather have a chronological listing for the episode. If I can only get one of the things, please, chronological listing.
Yes. Yes. So it starts off. The first episode of the third arc takes place right before Revenge of the Sith, like depending on how long they're in hyperspace, minutes or hours before Revenge of the Sith. They start off on, I can't remember what planet they're on at the very beginning. Let me just check. It's Urbana, I guess. We do get not a space battle there, but we get a little skirmish. We see some ships fighting with each other. We see an amazing shot of General Grievous, who's like in the new season for 5 seconds, but just looks incredible.
They were a good 5 seconds.
Yeah, they were the per second. It was very good. And then we have kind of one of the last moments that there would be between Anakin and Obi-Wan, kind of like their last big adventure. As it's still very lighthearted. At this point, Anakin's like basically as powerful as he'll ever be, which was cool to see. He kind of just he plays a part in annihilating an entire platoon of battle droids who just can't even keep up with him. Nice to see a tactical droid again as well. And then, of course, we have the conversation with...
Is this when the conversation happens where... is it this or in 2 episodes where it's Ahsoka talking to the council? I think that's 2 episodes from now, the second last one, after Maul's captured.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, you mean where like they come in right before like Anakin is off to... Like when she that's later, because at this point it's still before Revenge of the Sith.
Well, it was just like the conversation with like Mace Windu, Ahsoka, Yoda, and Ahsoka's like, I'm just doing this on my own, not as a Jedi or as a civilian. And Mace's like,
and
okay,
Mace
complete Ahsoka or a civilian Tano. You don't get to learn anything about the thing you're doing because I don't like you anymore.
Mm-hmm. I do like how we get a Fulcrum reference, because when Ahsoka calls Yularen, she asks for Anakin by the Fulcrum frequency, I guess.
So Vader really should have known.
That's kind of a hint, because she uses that.
These issues, and we get a lot of security issues where like...
kind of like
and like where Ahsoka knows Anakin's passwords to everything, which is probably bad form, and the password is only like 4 characters, which... I mean, that's...
It's Padme XO.
4 characters is fine for unlocking your phone, but especially with Star Wars computers, that can be brute forced in like half a second.
A second? To be fair, any Star Wars computer can be brute forced.
Yeah, just spinning stuff around a little bit.
If he can get his little robot ding dong into the thing.
We can't get into this one. It's up an inch from standard.
That does kind of remind me, though, one thing we didn't talk about in the second arc is there's that scene when the ship is leaving Coruscant and Anakin's on the Venator, and they stop the ship for a second because it's in like a military fly lane. I thought that was pretty cool. And there's kind of a reference to the Return of the Jedi scene where it's like the Executor over Endor. I just thought it was cool too, because it's like we never see like, it must be really annoying having to live on Coruscant while this massive fleet is over there. It's like half the space is restricted and you get shot out real quick. I don't know. I just thought it was...
Yularen had a lot of restraint there when they were flying out. It's like, they're flying straight at us. They're still flying straight at us.
Yeah.
They're still flying straight at us? Oh, well.
Yeah, it's fine. And, knowing how Star Wars ships are, you never put your shield
literally
up
the
until
last second.
You're actually in action. That's what every Star Wars story I've
You've
got
to save money. It costs a lot to run the shields.
Mm-hmm. So Bo-Katan shows up. Bo-Katan and Ahsoka show up on the Venator and just be completely unreasonable. They're like, listen, you guys need to help us at Mandalore. And Obi-Wan's like, that's literally illegal. Like, we can't do this. It's completely illegal. And
I will make it legal.
But she's like, but will you still do it though? And he's like, I guess so. And then he gives her like half of an entire clone.
We'll still do it,
and, like,
but we need some time for an arts and crafts project first. You may find this slightly racist.
What do you think of? I guess what do you think of the whole debacle there between the Republic and Mandalore? Like, do you think they were right to step in and help out? I guess.
I mean, probably because it's hard to say what Maul was really going to end up doing otherwise. But a Mandalore controlled by Maul wouldn't have been great. Controlled by Death Watch wouldn't have been great. But at the same time, it kind of is a little bit more important to protect Coruscant. So just strategic thinking there, not the best. It probably causes more issue. Like it's just gonna realistically, it's probably more of a rallying cry for Death Watch to have the Republic step in and basically shoot them all. So,
because also where yeah, exactly, where they'd kind of ousted the legitimate government, and now the Republic is here. Like, that's basically just like a real bra moment if you're not in Death Watch, because you've basically just justified everything they've done. It's like, oh look, Sovereign Mandalore is being attacked by the aggressive Republic now. Good thing we're not demilitarized anymore.
That's basically just the best way to get them to maybe go over to the CIS or make them hate you. Yeah, not ideal, but still worked out, I guess. No one ever had a problem with Mandalore after that.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was completely fine. There is still the fate of Mandalore after the Clone Wars, I don't think has been fully fleshed out. We do know that there was some sort. I mean, we know from at least the Mandalorian that there was some sort of purging. So I guess the Empire eventually came in and was like, nah. Because even though Death Watch is kicked out, they're kicked out and replaced by Death Watch. So it's because Bo-Katan was still a part of Death Watch. She was just not wanting to work with Maul.
So it really doesn't accomplish much. It's not the ideal people you want in charge in the first place, and they need to. Again, I can't stress this enough. Coruscant is being attacked, which it's not that Coruscant is more important than other planets, as people on Coruscant aren't more important than people on Mandalore, but in order to not lose the war and to have the ability to continue to help anyone, Coruscant kind of needs to not be taken. But, I did like how Anakin was we'll do the arts and crafts project on the clones, but what would really be nice for you is if your lightsaber looks more like mine.
Well, I guess he had, because it's she probably spent a lot of time thinking about what lightsaber color she has. You get called by the crystals on Ilum, and so there's probably some sort of inherent meaning to that. And then Anakin's LOL, lightsaber goes blue.
Yeah, and it's in retrospect, knowing what happens to Anakin, the fact that she has this reminder of who he was is nice. But at the same time, when he's making them, the fact that he's the one that put them in, he doesn't know that he's going to do that. It's just kind of a dick move.
Yeah. So at the end of season 7, does she leave both of her lightsabers? Because she gets, from what I remember correctly, because in Rebels she's got the white ones, and I'm pretty sure she took those white ones from Inquisitors. So
I think she just leaves the one. Was that the Shoto, or was that?
I do like how she still has the Shoto as well. Got the regular one in the Shoto. I don't know why I like that.
Do you think the clones all painted their own Ahsoka faces on, or?
So is that something that Anakin was just going to do anyway? Because
weird. I don't know when they did that.
You can't do that in 10 minutes.
Well, I guess they all must have done their own. Did he pass out a stencil set, or?
They show up to when Obi-Wan's at Kamino. It's we've bred these clones from Jango Fett, who is top of the line in combat and also arts and crafts. He's got a very steady hand with a marker, I guess. But yeah, I don't know when they did that.
Yeah.
Kind of racist too.
2 million units are ready, and 3 million more are in their art classes.
And also, they've got no problem with Chagruda face.
And especially when they're about to shoot at her. Like, come on.
Yeah. That was
it's just adding insult to injury at that point. But when they're on the Venator, like staring down Jesse, and Rex has already, I guess, betrayed the rest of the clones, and they're trying to stall for time in the hangar, I would have been convinced by Rex's argument, like it's the correct thing. And the same thing with like when they get Order 66, their initial responses are kill Ahsoka and kill Maul. Maul is not a Jedi at all, and Ahsoka left the Order.
I think that Sidious probably programmed in anti-technicality,
but it's not a technicality. It's like they're out. They're not. They're like the opposite of Jedi at this point. Or Maul is definitely the opposite of Jedi, unless Sidious like left in kill Maul programming, which.
Well, I imagine the general thing. I don't know. It is tough, and like Alex from Star Wars Explained talked about this. Like, is the scene when Palpatine calls Commander Cody in Revenge of the Sith, is that the only way Order 66 is sent out to the clones, or is there like a switch that's also flipped that like basically ensures that Palpatine becomes the Supreme Chancellor?
I think it has to be like sent out to at least someone in an area, and then that kind of gets distributed through the chips at that point.
So then is it the wording or something, or like are the things always on?
It might be like they're turned on by like the commander hears the thing and then his flips, and then everyone under his command flips. But I don't know. I don't like the chip.
The reason why I thought so it. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it, but the reason why I think there must be a switch flipped is because when Sidious or when Palpatine calls Commander Rex,
Darth Sidious,
Rex calls
which
him
no one
Sidious.
even does as the Emperor.
Yeah.
So that was really weird as well. I didn't like that.
Sidious was like his band name he went by in high school, and like he's kind of embarrassed by it later on, but he still occasionally gets called Sidious.
Because like Palpatine wasn't really advertising the fact that he was a Sith Lord. No. Even after the Empire formed, like maybe he had some dark side memorabilia, but he had that as Chancellor as well. He had the statues and everything, which really should have been a tip off to the Jedi Order. But what can you expect?
No, I'm just really into history. He says with a giant swastika of flags, like on his desk. But yeah, you know, Palpatine's super extra. Someone said in the chat because he had to just program Sidious as his name into there. It's like if I like had all my family call me Eck instead of Justin. Yeah, they do. Gus especially. But yeah, so that's kind of why I feel like there must be something switched. And like, I don't know, even before, maybe I might just be bullshitting because I know what happens, but it even seems like they're kind of hypnotized even as the call is happening. But I don't know. I did really like, I guess we are jumping ahead. The Siege of Mandalore, like, we're jumping ahead to the Order 66 bit. Anything you want to talk about with the Siege of Mandalore itself?
Not really, because it was mostly just a framing device for the Ahsoka Maul duel and their discussions about what's happening with Anakin and Sidious and everything. Like the actual battle itself, you get a little bit on the start when they're running through and everything, but even then, it's being set up as like part of something broader.
It's really just one episode, Like I did a battle breakdown on the Siege of Mandalore, and I put part 1 because I thought we'd get more later on, but really it's just the first episode. You're right; it is just a framing device, I guess. I will say the second episode, where Maul and Ahsoka face off, is really cinematic. This whole arc was kind of unlike anything else in the Clone Wars, which I really enjoyed. Like the third episode had that beginning where it's very like subdued and introspective almost. You haven't really got anything like that in the Clone Wars before. And then the duel between Maul and Ahsoka, I guess that's the other thing to talk about for episode 3. Anything you want to mention? Or episode 2. Anything else you want to mention about that?
No, that was the first place where I really noticed the lightsaber trails, though, that where it made it look like they were kind of bendy, which I wasn't sure how I felt about it. Like rewatching the duel, I liked it.
I really noticed that. Sorry, what is that?
I didn't where like they
that.
have more than before. They had the light from the lightsaber sort of stay and kind of fan out rather than just be the stick itself, and it made it look sometimes like the lightsabers were bendy just because of how it did it. So it took a bit for me to get on board with that, but once I I thought it looked really cool.
I didn't really notice that, to be honest. I was pretty blown away by the duel, and there were kind of some different like we got different reporting about how much the duel would actually be using like Ray Park's like motion cap, because at first they made it seem like it was all going to be motion capped, and then later on, before the season aired, I don't remember who it was, but they kind of tried to downplay it, I think. But the duel definitely felt a lot different than any other.
Yeah, definitely in the show.
Yeah.
It felt a lot more grounded or like prequel-y than some of the rest of the series, and so it was probably my favorite duel in the show.
Difference in footwork. Yeah, especially the end where they're like Mandalore, or I forget the name of that specific city they're on, but it's so weird. It's like got that giant dome, and then like I don't know what purpose that's for. I mean, it's cool. The very end where they're fighting on top of that was very cinematic.
Yeah. There was some controversy, or some people upset that like Ahsoka beat Maul well disarmed, but it's just like it was the situation they were in where she had a bit of an advantage.
Maul knows it's going to go down as well. Like he's trying to just leave.
And like later on, he does basically the same thing to Ahsoka when they're trying to escape the ship. So it's just like a situational thing where Ahsoka had been good enough and had been training enough. Like, yeah, she was able to come out on top in that one situation after honestly kind of losing a good part of the rest of the duel. Like, yeah, Maul was running away more, but he was also not necessarily trying to kill Ahsoka, because for Ahsoka, her goal there is, I need to kill Maul. For Maul, it's, I need to get away, but I also need allies against Sidious, because he's kind of aware of what's going to be going on. And especially someone who's so close to Anakin, and he realizes Anakin has some other role that Sidious isn't or hadn't made obvious to him.
Yeah, I also think that sometimes Maul's hyped up a bit too much, because, and I mentioned this a bit in my episode review, and I got some good points on both sides. It's not Legends where Maul is like basically just an attack dog that Sidious uses, but I also don't think that Maul is like, I think Maul's biggest quality is the fact that he's a survivor, not that he's like, I don't think he's very aggressive. I think he beats, for example, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon in episode 2 largely just because of how unexpected he is, and the Jedi probably let their skills lapse a bit. But I don't think he's like the most powerful Force user of the era.
When Obi-Wan beats Maul, like, sure, he'd been training as a Jedi, but that was like peacetime Jedi as peacekeepers. Like, they wouldn't have that much experience in like actual lightsaber duels or direct combat in the way that like Ahsoka now and Obi-Wan now, Anakin, like they kind of just spent the last few years training in a war, and Ahsoka had like dueled with Ventress. So it's not like this is now suddenly saying, oh, actually Ahsoka just blows Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan out of the water. It's just the situation they were in, but also she had more experience at that point. Obi-Wan had more experience at that point.
No, I agree completely. I mean, Ahsoka's been training the whole time. Like, she's done some real badass stuff. The part of the Siege of Mandalore 2 where she's like jumping down through the ships was really cool. I don't think we mentioned that, but like as the AA guns are fire, or I thought they were AA guns because of the size of the explosions and how far they're being shot. But people point out to me that they're just the backpack rockets. But that was really cool. So yeah, I had no problem with Ahsoka winning. And it was one of those wins that could have went either way. And she was losing, too, before he tried to run.
And I really like how they were, like, arresting all the other Devil Watch or all the Maul people and still leaving like their jetpacks on and everything. So like they're being taken away, but they have their jetpack. Like, what are you? Why are you doing this? They could get away.
Please don't try to run.
Look, I'll tie up your hands, but keep your jetpack.
It's the honor system here, guys.
They just didn't want to model the back of their arm.
That was... But yeah, then we get the Solo reference we mentioned. We get another one, or another sort of Star Wars non-sequel film with Rogue One. We kind of get two references in the final episode. We get the sort of one with the Force, or I'm with the Force and the Force with me, or whatever it is, from Rogue One. And I guess Maul's escape is sort of similar to the Vader scene. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I
enjoyed that.
I like that when Chirrut did it, where it was just like this mantra he was repeating. But I don't like I don't really like the fact that it's something that Ahsoka did by repeating it the same way. Where I think like the reason Chirrut was doing it well the way he was more like this situation he was in, where saying it once, like I'm one with the Force and the Force is with me. Having that as a saying is great, but having it be like this thing that you chant repeatedly, I think that should have been left more as like that's what Chirrut was doing for that situation.
Yeah, it would have been interesting too if like it was a small bit of Jedi lore, or like just something about the Jedi that he understood and he was kind of channeling, but now it's like, no, that was an actual Jedi thing that they did. Like a calming, I guess, or like just a peacefulness technique.
If you know anything about mindfulness, it's that like aggravatedly chanting the same phrase as quickly as possible it's what a lot of that's about.
Let yourself become the universe, and don't stop saying these words. Yeah. I guess we're kind of on to episode 3 now, unless anything else about the Maul Ahsoka duel you want to mention? I will say I liked when they went underground. They would kind of hide in those tunnels. I thought that was very creepy. There's like a shot at the beginning of episode 2 where it's like panning down into the Undercity.
Yeah, I got nothing else with the duel. I'm good to move on to the Jedi and Order 66 side of things.
So the second to last episode of the series is called Shattered. And it basically starts off with some of the things we just mentioned. Somehow Gar Saxton, who is in Rebels, I guess he's taken into custody. I guess later on he's freed by the Empire, because that's where he is later on. Maybe some of the captured Mandalorians are put back in control of.
There's still
Mandalore,
20 years to figure that out.
That'll be a story. Yeah, there's plenty of time. And yeah, the beginning of this episode's very kind of cool. A lot of people pointed out that there's almost Blade Runner-esque music, which I'd noticed as well. I liked that. Then we get that scene that you mentioned where Ahsoka calls into the Jedi. She conference call. She zooms in, and the Jedi. It's that very dark scene. It's made especially dark in the novelization, where the Jedi are essentially talking about overthrowing the Chancellor and taking direct control over the Senate. And to me, that scene is a good illustration of the fact that like the Jedi kind of fucked themselves over, because Palpatine is really just playing into like people's fears.
Yeah.
Especially like Anakin about how the Jedi are power hungry. It's like overthrowing the Senate was not the right thing to do, even if they had to take control of Palpatine. So yeah, I always liked that scene, and having Ahsoka kind of inserted towards the end, and Mace Windu continuing to be a dick, I think.
I thought one thing that was kind of weird about those conversations is that we see him in the movie, and like we even see where like the perspective of some of the Jedi Council members that are Skyping in, where they're still kind of seeing the circle situation. They're sitting on a chair, but we know what the layout of that scene was, but then we have them just standing in a group in that holocall, and only some of them, but also for some reason Aayla Secura is there.
Yeah, I was kind of I saw her and I was like, was she there in the movie? And
I'm pretty sure she's not. We only see her on Felucia in the movie. She's not a council member. Why would she be there? No, there's nothing really special about Aayla Secura. It's just
right.
Well, and also, is it Kit Fisto in her? That kind of smash, but like, yeah, she's not a council member. She's not granted the rank of master either. Like, this it's just weird that she's there.
She doesn't need to take a seat, so
Yeah, she was allowed to stand.
yeah.
So it's all just a slap in the face to Anakin. Was
People
she
were saying she
in that
was in
scene?
the movie, so that was probably a George Lucas thing then. Yeah, in that scene, I honestly can't remember. I thought she. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I didn't go back and check though. I couldn't remember. Just reading Legends.
Because
Yeah, I'm not sure.
yeah, I don't think she was in that scene.
I don't know.
She is? Okay.
I would have been
That's
surprised
really
if
surprising.
they changed it, and yeah, people are saying she was. So I'll accept that as correct. It is still weird because she is just kind of a. I guess it's because she was commanding the Felucia attack, and they needed to. I guess there was maybe a checkup about that or something, but
I need to rewatch episode 3
I
then.
don't know.
'Cause
yeah, episode 3 is one of those movies that's like super detailed, and like I enjoy watching that movie because you always notice something, which is cool. Yeah, other people are confirming she was in that scene, so yeah, kind of a strange choice, but thanks for the information, people.
we needed to get droid attack on the Wookiees scene again, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really,
that was the
real
biggest
shame
missed
that we missed out
opportunity
on
of
that.
the.
What was I gonna say? So, how do you feel about the fact that we get told this very limited story for the final arc? Would you have preferred it to be limited to I almost said Ayla Secura, Rex and Ahsoka, or are you happy that it or would you have preferred it to be kind of around the galaxy?
I think we got a good enough view of like the around the galaxy stuff with episode 3 of anyone that we really would have cared too much about. I do like that we got a more in-depth story with one of the other survivors with Ahsoka here, especially because in a lot of ways the Clone Wars TV series is the story of like Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka and their experience with the war and like the people around them, and we know what happens with Anakin and Obi-Wan's, and we get some background flashes of that. But here, just focusing on Ahsoka's story to close it out, I thought was appropriate.
Yeah, I was thinking like, oh, I wish we got to see more of Anakin and Obi-Wan, but like, there's really nothing else to tell.
Yeah,
because the movie tells.
I think there were some people
really.
kind of hoping to see, well, just like a kind of a repeat of some of what we saw in the movie, but on the show, and I think that would have been kind of a waste. But
yeah, because like if you change too much, it sucks, and if you don't change enough, it sucks. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation to do that, in my opinion. So I would agree with that. And like I said, Mace continues to be a dick. He's like as if Ahsoka leaving the Order wasn't totally understandable. Now she's like helped free Mandalore, and Mace just being completely unreasonable about all of it. Although I did kind of get the feeling that that she was considering rejoining the Jedi.
I think she was considering that after the war eventually, and then I think like Mace especially just absolutely shuts that door. Well,
Palpatine really
that's fair, but I think after what Mace was acting like, it wouldn't have happened. So actually, that's kind of in a world where the Clone Wars end, Jedi don't get Order 66. Do you think that there's like another schism in the Order where like some of the Jedi want to be maintaining their kind of like military commander status almost, and more interventionists in the galaxy, probably led by Mace Windu or even Anakin, and then Yoda and some others are like, nah?
I don't really know if that's what Anakin wanted, though. I think that's maybe what Mace Windu wanted, but I don't think there was enough division to cause a full separation, especially where they had just been fighting a war. It's a good question, though. I don't know. That's one that I'd like to hear from anyone who emails us. I'm not sure. I don't think there would be. I think eventually, like the Jedi were just decaying, like time, like just over time, they were just completely falling apart. So I don't think that would have been the cause of the Jedi Rift that eventually broke them apart, but I do think that eventually they would have crumbled.
I just don't see like.
What about you though?
Mace adjusting to peacetime as well as Yoda, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing Mace as like the kind of leader of a faction of Jedi who are a bit more aggressive or interventionist.
I will say it's disturbing how quickly they all just said, "Okay, let's do this." When it came to like commanding a war, considering that's completely against everything that they've like ever stood for. And they're like, "Will we get cool capes?"
We were on Geonosis, so I guess we kind of got to do this now.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know enough about like all I really know about Mace is what's in the show and what's in the movie. So it's hard
it just seems like
say.
so much of Anakin's problems
like,
with the Jedi Council come almost directly through Mace's treatment of him. Like Mace is very dismissive of Anakin in a lot of ways, but him and Anakin also spend a lot of time together in the show, which is like a very common pairing in the show, almost as common as Anakin and Obi-Wan at certain points. But like Mace does not appreciate Anakin, which in hindsight is justifiable, but at the same time also kind of the cause of some of Anakin's problems.
Yeah, and I will also say if Mace had been a little less dickish, maybe Ahsoka would have told him what Maul told her about Anakin basically like being a tool for whichever Dark Lord. Like Maul didn't know who the Dark Lord was, but he basically, from what I remember, warns Ahsoka that somebody is trying to get Anakin as their new apprentice. And like if that had been information that Maul would have known, or sorry, that Mace would have known before going to confront Palpatine, things might have went differently. But I think he just proves all of Ahsoka's kind of prejudices about the Jedi correct.
Yeah.
So yeah. I do like how Yoda is of course not a dick and stays after the call. He's like, UK question mark?
Here's my cell.
Yeah.
Talks to Mace afterwards. Fuck,
I think
Ahsoka
did make a mistake. No. What do you think about Ahsoka's decision not to pass on the information though? Because Rex even asks her, he's like, excuse me?
I mean, it's a dumb decision, but it also makes sense. Where to her, like her number one is Anakin, so going to him first is what she'd feel like she has to do, especially if she's picking up on the same vibes that Anakin is of like, can't really trust the Jedi Council. Like they're kind of two sides of the same coin there, where it's like they're both disillusioned with what the Jedi Council is doing, and Ahsoka's even more disillusioned with like Obi-Wan included in that group, where Anakin wasn't. But like in that situation, you can't really expect her to go to those people or anyone connected to them that she sees as being part of the problem, when as far as she's concerned, she's thinking like, okay, I'm going to tell Anakin and we're going to figure this out together. But
no, I agree, that makes sense. What was I going to say? So then we get that scene basically where they cut in the sequences from Revenge of the Sith, and it's kind of cool. They have most of the dialogue for Anakin. Most of the dialogue comes directly from the movie, but like some of Anakin stuff, for example, I think especially his no at the very end or something, is from Matt Lanter, who does the voice in the show, which I thought was really cool. And I also like, I don't know if you picked up on this too, and I'm not saying that this is what they intended, but I thought it was interesting how Maul is getting the vision of what Palpatine is saying, and then Ahsoka's kind of, well, it starts off with Maul and he's just hearing Palpatine, and then Ahsoka's just hearing Anakin. So I kind of felt like, although we the viewer are getting it from both sides, maybe it's supposed to kind of show that they're kind of feeling what's going on with their masters, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that was cool. Then we get Order 66 itself. Shit goes down in the nastiest way possible. I really liked how, even though Rex can't fight against his programming, he he tries. Like or it's at least very,
Yeah.
very painful for him. He drops his helmet, he's got a tear running down his eye and stuff.
And it's a lot easier for him to just murder his brothers who are, he knows, under control of that rather than.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. It's kind of funny how Ahsoka's like, I won't kill any clones, which she freaking let Darth Maul loose on the ship, and he's just like, not only murdering them, but
literally that has to be one of the
possible.
dumbest ideas anyone's ever had, of just letting Maul loose.
Yeah. I mean, he did rip the ship out of hyperspace. That is quite a distraction.
But I think her just working with Maul for that would have been fine. Like that was probably the right call.
I agree.
Rather than putting Rex in danger as well, knowing that Maul is going to do something incredibly stupid, especially since you've just told Maul you have no interest in. Like you told him like you're kind of hoping he dies in the attempt. And just like keep him with you ish, work with him to get off the ship if you're going to let him out at all. Like maybe even ideally don't let him out. But of the three possibilities, she picked the worst one.
Yes, I agree. Did you like the sequence with Maul basically tearing it up?
I enjoyed it, but it's always one of the weirdest things for me where like every Star Wars ship interior anywhere near like the hyperdrive or any sort of mechanical bit is laid out the same way as the tractor beam in episode 4. So like a big cavernous space inside these ships that can only really be so big. But
yeah, it's like people fall and it's like can't be falling that
7
far.
meters long in total. So like is this covering the entire height of the ship in an area? I don't know.
I was kind of hoping, because I didn't know a whole lot about the Siege of Mandalore, I was hoping that Order 66 would happen like mid-siege, you know what I mean? Like mid-battle. Like, because we've had Order 66 on a Venator with Fallen Order. I'm not going to say it's disappointing, but it's, I think, a little bit boring of a location. But it was pretty cool when the hyperdrive get ripped out and whatnot. I don't know. Like, I guess the final battle is pretty cool. I mean, I don't think we've ever seen so many clones actually doing things on screen at once. When Jesse when they start pouring out into the hangars, I was like, holy shit, that's a lot of clones.
And the raising and falling of the platform, that was funny, but
yeah. I do like how the droids just continue to be absolute bros in the show. Like when Order 66 happens, every bit of like formal programming in those droids would have said, okay, listen, like the Republic's still in command. It doesn't matter what's happened. But because those droids are like, you know, essentially living beings, one of them was Ahsoka's, they're like,
they get more freedom of choice than the clones do.
Yeah, exactly. And then they're rewarded by they're all destroyed. And I was like, man, that's actually kind of gruesome. Like I love droids in Star Wars. I'm a big droids guy. So like, they're just like, and like to me that was like showing how the clones just get this completely different attitude now, and they're like destroy those droids even after they've captured them. They've got no real purpose for doing so. You know what I mean?
Well, they were assisting the Order 66, but they were traitors now. So
yeah.
They were.
I guess. I do.
I was just gonna say they were getting shot for the same reason Rex was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I do like how Rex gets his demotion.
Yeah, that was
captain. She's like, I didn't like being commander anyway. I was like, why'd they promote him? But
that was really weird. It's a really mixed up priority system. Like maybe if you want to bring up anything, just say you're getting discharged, but like saying you're getting demoted and we're gonna kill you. Like, no, not demoted.
Yeah. Like, wait, what was that second part?
We could be killed, or worse, expelled. Always has to be
HP
one.
reference there, Corey? We might go.
No, last time we did, it was just we talked about Twilight instead. Also, new Twilight stuff is coming out, so we picked a great time to get into that. Apparently,
new Twilight stuff is coming out.
I don't know what it is exactly,
stuff?
but it's happening. So another TapCaf Transmissions topic.
We might have to put it as if we were going to Patreon. We'll put it as a funding goal of $2.
We'll never get to $2.
And then also, it's like $2, and we make a Twilight themed episode. I just donate immediately. Okay.
$1,000 pledged by Eckhart's Ladder.
If you insist. Does that mean we got to do 500 episodes now? What was I going to say? I don't know. It's just, yeah, I completely lost.
Droids are dead.
I'm just
clones are.
Yeah, droids are dead. Big battles. Ahsoka really not killing them, which I like. She's like, you know what? I'm not going to kill, or they might want to die, but I'm not going to do it.
It won't be because
then
I've killed you.
I don't blame her for that,
no.
though. That wasn't her fault.
It was entirely her fault because she
her
should have
fault.
known generally what would happen.
Yeah. It was her fault, but she didn't do it directly, I guess.
But, I mean, come on. It was a stressful situation, but you don't let Darth Maul out and tell him to go fuck himself.
The dude's name is Darth Maul.
The best thing in that situation is to keep an eye on him if you're going to do it. So, I think, bad idea.
It is interesting how I do feel like the clones just become more evil after Order 66. Like, one thing I noticed in Revenge of the Sith is even after Order 6 happens, you see the clones starting to round up and arrest the creatures on Utapau, the Powans and the whatever the smaller ones or whichever the other ones are. Yeah. So it's like, it's like once Order 66 comes off, they're just basically becoming stormtroopers.
I like how at some point now Rex has to find an AT-AT that's still working in there, and some other clones, I guess, survive. So was that the same planet he was on?
Yeah. I don't think so. I don't know actually. I don't remember what planet
like
it was on
a sandy, deserty planet. But and that planet was sandy and deserty until the 20-year skip, or however long skip when it was winter.
I assume not, because he does meet like Gregor and the other clones.
Yeah, and they have to get an ATT from somewhere. And there's definitely not one working there.
Well, that's not necessarily true because the Venator did crash. So
yeah, I guess she did recover all the helmets, or not all of them, but Jesse's and some others.
Presumably, Vader would have found him though when they were there.
But we also don't know exactly when that is. That could have been significantly later.
Yes. Yeah. What was I gonna do? So in Rebels, Rex basically says that he took his chip out and didn't kill any of the Jedi. I guess the second part is true, but that's a very friendly reading of the situation.
He didn't turn on his Jedi, really. I think he was fine in the way he worded it. Well,
Ahsoka's not a Jedi.
Just because
he didn't take his chip out though. He was there.
Yeah,
his chip was taken out.
I think for the context of the conversation they were having, there's only so much detail he needs to give. He doesn't need to give a full recounting.
Listen, Ahsoka, who I'm about to meet in 20 minutes, took it out from me, and I was basically passed out. Yeah, no, that does make sense.
Like if someone asks you,
something else I wanted to
what did you have for lunch? Do you just say a sandwich, or do you say the whole process of how the sandwich was made?
Well, it's more like if somebody asked me what I had for lunch, and I said I made myself a sandwich, but it was really my mom made me a sandwich. Or Kelsey, I guess. I don't know why I default to my mom, but
I'm not holding it against Rex. He sacrificed a lot for this.
Fine.
He deserves to.
Yeah, he did. Rex is a real one. Like Rex is a true bro. Like when he finds out what's happening, he doesn't hesitate.
He does not hesitate. Right. He shows no mercy. He does what must be done.
Yep. Yes, he does. The scene where they were, I think my favorite scene of the series is when the vendors falling through down to the planet's surface. It's just really nicely made, and it's just like everything is just going to hell.
Yeah, that took a lot longer than I thought it would. But I guess they were coming in the whole time, so.
Yeah. And then I guess we end with the final scene, which I wasn't sure if they were going to do anything Vader-like. And then, we get the full Empire. I'm not sure when that was supposed to take place. It's left ambiguous, which is fine. I guess they didn't, they never found... My guess is they just didn't... It took them a while to find out where the vendor went, and it's just probably part of their greater Jedi hunting.
Because that was a big part of what Vader was doing for the next 20 years. Kind of a sad life he lived, but...
Yeah, I love that scene where he picks up the lightsaber. And he's just like, man, kind of fucked myself, didn't I? It's like blue is so much cooler than red.
No, you'll use red. Okay.
That's like Vader was fine with everything else, with his suit being really uncomfortable, with not having a dong anymore, but having to use the red lightsaber, that was it.
Luke, you are the result of the last time I had sex. I guess though they were together.
Maybe? No, definitely not. They were definitely. Do you see that glow? He had
I forgot
on
they were
when
alone together for at least a few more nights.
Listen, you no way people as good looking as Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman in love together in that big ass apartment aren't getting her done at least a few times. But yeah, it's still a nice image, I guess. Not really. And then we get the bird from Rebels. I thought that was nice. It's like a little every Revenge of the Sith era thing, and it always ends it's just going to be complete shit. Everyone's dead. But there's always a little bit of hope in Revenge of the Sith. We get of course Luke and I almost said Padme, Luke and Leia going to their parents or their adoptive parents basically. Then we get I think is it the Condor it's called, the little bird. So it's just evil is reigning right now, but it won't always be terrible.
Yeah, it'll be great, and then it'll be terrible a few years later again.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. More, yeah. Is there anything else you want to mention, though? I thought this was... I think our opinion of the season is that it was a good season. There were a few low points, but all in all, probably one of my favorite seasons, if not my favorite. I think the last episode is my favorite.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good season overall. I'm happy we got it. I hope we do get more. Like you were saying, there's a lot of opportunities for that. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
I'm just checking to see if did we get any emails on this topic specifically? Because I know we got some, but we'll probably deal with those, I imagine, on the
we got a few questions just about iJedi.
Oh, I found the email from YouTube Zoner Manager 1789 at Gmail. Well, I probably should have said his full email address, whatever, at gmail.com.
Well, you technically. Oh wait, no,
that was the one. That was the guy trying
Gmail.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. So I think we're going to get our check for that. We're going to use that to finance further TapCaf content. We'll answer. So I was actually thinking about the questions and how we're probably going to be trying to move to, or how we're moving generally to weekly content as well with different topics. I was thinking that these episodes would probably tend to be shorter episodes, so we might move the email questions to these episodes. What do you think about that?
Oh, these episodes. Yeah, no. Well, I don't know. My only problem with that is most of our emails are about the books. But if you want, we can go through right now, and I didn't do this beforehand because I just figured we'd do it next episode, but we can go through and address any that aren't related to the
Han Solo stuff?
The book that we'll be discussing about.
I don't think there's actually any about Any about Han Solo yet? I think there are just some questions about iJedi.
Okay. So the first one of those is from Brent, who points out something that we completely forgot to discuss last episode, and that is that
Leonia Tavira.
What's her name again? Tavira? Yeah. Leonia? Yeah, Leonia Tavira actually escapes at the end of iJedi. And he points out that she's never actually mentioned in any of the other books. I assume she just died at some point. Like, she had a Star Destroyer. The New Republic probably didn't like her very much. They kind of broke the back.
Didn't Luke even say that he would like join up with Rogue Squadron to help kill him? And then Corran's like, she doesn't really matter that much anymore. So we don't know what happened there, but we know Corran went back with Rogue Squadron. There was a lot of like warlord hunting that happened in the decade or so that led up to the Vong War. So it's probably just part of that. I don't think Michael Stackpole necessarily meant to go back and write more about her, but
if he wanted to, he could have thrown her into NJO, and he didn't. So, Javier points out, or just gave us a recommendation for a potential. Is it an anime to watch? So thank you very much for that. And he said, and that he enjoys the episode, so thank you very much. Advertising somebody at gmail.com.
Offer to advertise your channel. There's actually no content in that message. So thank you. We'll pay you the $1,600. Actually, I don't want to say that because I just want that $1,600 from YT's owner. So,
yeah. We've got one from Joshua basically pointing out, he kind of talks about how he wanted to email us about the Akbar winter scenes that a few other people pointed out, and also mentions, for those who don't know, because we haven't talked about it in this episode yet, surprisingly, we're investigating some theories.
They're not theories. These are
Admiral Akbar, and
this is really theories anymore. It's not like I guess the theory would be the theory of fish-human hybrids, but the facts of it are.
Well, it's like a scientific theory, like in that
it's
we
just
know
the framework is the theory, but Winter and Akbar are boning.
There's evidence, for it. So Winter, who's basically like one of Leia's childhood friends, and she's in the Alliance, and she's also the wife of a Rogue Squadron character, and Admiral Akbar, the big fishy guy from Return of the Jedi, are absolutely banging, probably pretty regularly. And we pointed out that she appears later on as sort of a carer for Akbar as he gets older. But he also mentions that her job is basically massaging Akbar and lubing him up. So,
yeah, it's 100%. Like there is no question here that they're doing disgusting things to each other all the time.
Yeah. I've never seen a Steven Seagal movie, but he also says that iJedi is basically a Star Wars version of an early
Steven Seagal he's always the same character in any movie he's in, which I don't recommend watching any of them because he's a terrible actor. He's a terrible person. There is an episode of Behind the Bastards just on Steven Seagal, and it's great. Like Steven Seagal is just awful.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you very much for that email. Another one, advertising a channel. Oh my god, the two emails we got have very similar subject lines. Interesting. One from Tyler, basically just saying thank you for a recommendation we gave him. I think you answered that one.
I answered one about the Salonian or Corran's List merchants, just a picture of Salonian.
Yeah. Daniel Jones asks about the difference between... So Revenge of the Sith talks about miniature hyperspace jumps to avoid being tracked. Grievous does it when retreating from Coruscant. Obi-Wan does it while leaving Utapau. So that's different than hyperspace skipping. What they're talking about there is something we get in Legends a lot, because you can kind of... It's not hyperspace tracking like in The Last Jedi, but if you see a vector somebody's on, you can kind of guess likely locations where they're going to end up. So what they'll do sometimes to avoid that, they'll make a small jump, and then they'll jump kind of out of the way, and then they'll jump to their final destination. They'll do that a few times, basically to avoid anyone following them. That is a little different than light speed skipping, which is... I'm not exactly sure, but not that.
Yeah, it's something else. All right.
Yeah. One from Hayden who asks about Republic Commando, and yeah, we will get there. I mean, if the question is, are we going to do something? Our plan for it always,
it's just a question of
yes.
when.
Yes, exactly. So we plan to do every book eventually. It's just some are priority. I think we're going to continue generally moving through the post Endor era, but we'll be taking breaks like we are now to do other stories. And what is Republic Commando? 5 books
Hard Contact, 000,
Imperial counted?
Order 66, Imperial Commando. Am I missing one? I don't think so.
I don't know. Either way, like those are like a series like that is something we could definitely fit in at some point.
And then we haven't exactly decided on too many topics that we're going to do for these interspersed episodes. There may be like different arcs of certain things, maybe certain topics, like just general topics, maybe some movies, TV show stuff. Some comics might even fit better here than in the regular book episodes. So if there's anything specific that you think would be a good topic for an episode like this and you want to send those in along with any other questions, our next episode is going to be on Han Solo. Is it at Star's End that's first? Okay, yeah. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to have basically 3 weeks of those books, or that book, the 3 parts of it, the 3 books within the book. And then after that, we're going to be going back to every other week as a book, and between the books will be some kind of topic. So there's a little bit of time there. If you have any questions about any of that, any suggestions for any of that, send that into tapcaftransmissions@gmail.com, spelled how it is on the banner of the episode you're watching here, or I guess if you're listening to the audio podcast, tapcaftransmissions@gmail.com.
Probably could have just spelled tap.
Yeah, I was already into it. I wanted to finish the job. I regretted a lot of my choices going into that, but we're here now. We don't need to talk about it anymore.
Yeah. That's gonna be it for me for today, though. We will be streaming, as we mentioned. Some
Tapped Out After the Calf is, I believe, the name.
Yeah, Tapped Out After Tapped, whatever. We'll be streaming some video games later on Corey's channel. Corey Loses, and the one we kind of run together, X2. So that'll be fun. Last episode was actually really, really fun to play. Or last session was
Sea of Thieves that we're playing tonight. I don't think you said that.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I was just saying that because I wasn't sure if you did, and I might have been. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. I don't know.
I think we'll just end with the fact that Halo probably should get a Battle Royale mode. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Should we just read all the comments on stream right now?
Let's take a look. I haven't been looking too much. For those listening, I put out the opinion, the objectively correct opinion. If you disagree, it's not that we're having a disagreement of opinions. It's just that I am objectively correct. And that's a joke. But put out a video on the fact that Halo Infinite should have a battle.
Wow, that dislike ratio though.
People did not agree. Let me check. I want to see what the likes and dislikes are at. You know what though? Sometimes it's good to put out a video that just riles people up.
Oh, that.
Let's see.
That's how you get to the dark side.
613 likes. Pretty good start to 1,000 dislikes. People are saying I deleted a comment too. I didn't delete any comments. I don't do that. I delete other people's comments if they're racist or something, but not my own. But yeah, that's super off topic, so I think we'll end it there. Thanks for watching.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good one, everyone.